All right, we are recording. I may not catch your chat messages, so if you have an urgent question, just stop me. Okay, so we're going through basic cryptography. So cryptography, the basic involves understanding what it is and how it's used. It also involves knowing limitations of cryptography. Cryptography is scrambling information so it cannot be read. It transforms information into secure form so unauthorized persons cannot access it. Steganography, which is really fascinating, hides the existence of data. An image, audio, or video file can contain hidden messages embedded in the file, achieved by dividing data and hiding in unused portions of the file. May hide data in the file header fields that describe the file between sections of metadata, data used to describe the content or structure of the actual data. Now, I have a lab that we'll do with a steganography tool, not in this class, but in 255 next semester. So if you look up the basics on steganography now, it'll give you a little bit of a heads up. So this is an example of hidden data by steganography. A lot of times they use image files. That's why when you're doing like computer forensics, if you go out and look at an image file that looks like it's got huge amount of data attached to it, it's a tool like a steganography tool that's been used. Encryption is the process of changing original text into secret messages using cryptography. Changing the secret message back to its original form is known as decryption. Now, these on the side, these plain text, ciphertext, clear text, you will need to know those. I can guarantee you'll see a lot of those in exams. Plain text is unencrypted data to be encrypted or is the output of decryptions. Sometimes you'll also hear data managers call it flat files. Ciphertext is the scrambled or unreadable output of encryption. Clear text is data stored or transmitted without encryption. Plain text data is input into a cryptographic algorithm, or it's also called a cipher. It consists of procedures based on a mathematical formula used to encrypt and decrypt the data. A key is a mathematical value entered into the algorithm to produce ciphertext. The reverse process uses the key to decrypt the message. A substitution cipher substitutes one character for another. That's like the old school. One type is the ROT13, in which the entire alphabet is rotated 13 steps. You'll hear a lot of stuff in history, like with the Romans, where they talk about this being used in a lot of their like military messages. An XOR cipher is based on the binary operation exclusive or that compares two bits. If the bits are different, a 1 is returned, and if they're identical, a 0 is returned. Now these are, they should not be in use on current technology. These are just giving you the steps of how things happened. So this is just a graphic. Your plain text goes in, hits your algorithm, and pops out as ciphertext. And then when you decrypt it, it just goes back the opposite direction and does the opposite of that. Okay, use cases for cryptography. Cryptography can provide several basic protections. Confidentiality, and remember these. Confidentiality ensures only authorized parties can view it. Integrity, this ensures the information is correct and unaltered. Authentication ensures the sender can be verified through cryptography. Non-repudiation, this one you will see pop up over and over again. So remember, non-repudiation proves that a user performed an action. What that means is if I log in and I use that cryptographic algorithm, the non-repudiation, and it's like attached to me, it says, okay, it proves basically without a doubt that I have performed that action. This is why you don't give other people your username and password. Obfuscation is making something obscure or unclear. Security through obscurity. This is an approach in security where virtually any system can be made secure as long as outsiders are unaware of it or how it functions. You see this a lot in military or the big three-letter agencies like CIA, FBI, NSA. They do that a lot. Cryptography can provide protection to data as that data resides in any of these three states. And you will see questions on cert exams on what is data at rest, what is data in transit, what is data in processing. So this is what they're talking about. Data in processing or in use is data actions being performed by endpoint devices. Data in transit are actions that transmit data across a network. And data at rest is data that is stored on electronic media. Usually that's, I'm sorry, I can't think of the name for it, but right now, but data at rest is basically your stuff that's stored on your hard drives and your servers. Yeah, thanks. Like I told you guys, when I get these, the words just kind of go whoop right out of my head. Limitations of cryptography. The number of small electronic devices. Sorry, I had a cat just try to cause an avalanche. The number of small electronic devices, low power devices, has grown significantly. These devices need to be protected from threat actors. Applications that require extremely fast response times also face cryptography limitations. So there's a resource versus security constraint, and this is a limitation in providing strong cryptography due to the tug of war between available resources, time and energy, and the security provided by cryptography. It's important that there be a high resiliency in cryptography. High resiliency is the ability to quickly recover from the resource versus security constraints. High resiliency also is important because it also, if you have an algorithm that has a low resiliency, it's not going to stay in use very long. Yeah, that's, yeah, the cat. Yeah, it was one of my gray cats, and he just decided, yes, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to go ahead and run over the top of this. And oh, yep, nope, that wasn't steady. Okay, so here's your limitations of cryptography. You have your energy, security, latency, and you can see the time constraints and things like that. Right. Knowledge check. Which of the following is a term that proves, like I said, you'll see these again, that a user performed an action with a computer or data? Confidentiality, non-repudiation, obfuscation, authentication. Now, before you do that, E. Cope, we'll all cope with it, yes. Okay, remember what I said about non-repudiation. It's the, you can't, it links it to a user, but it's also saying without a doubt that user performed an action. Non-repudiation tripped me up several times when I first learned it. And yeah, it was weirdly worded. That's why I said that one you will see that one on certification exams. And this is what they're actually looking for. So I knew it was going to trick pretty much everyone up, because the first time I saw that in a cert exam or on cert tests, I was like, what are they even talking about? Why would they word it this way? And it seems kind of bass-ackward. And yes, I did say it that way on purpose. But that is not always, but yeah, a lot of the times if you see non-repudiation, the big thing about non-repudiation is if there's anything in the sentence that says proves that a user performed an action, that right there is what you're after. The other ones, technically authentication is just allowing you to get into something, but non-repudiation specifically talks about proving that you performed an action. So anytime you see that, that's your, yeah, that is your big keyword that you're going to look for on that one. All right, cryptographic algorithms. Now there are a ton of them. So there are some basic differences between different types. So a fundamental difference in these is the amount of data that you can process. And I can tell you right now, these Stream, Block, and Sponge, you will see these a lot too. Stream takes one character and replaces it with another. Block manipulates an entire block of plain text at one time. Sponge takes as input, it inputs a string of any length and returns a string of any requested variable length. Now, you will see questions in cert exams that say, they'll give you a use case and say, in this use case, which would be better, Stream or Block? Usually you don't see Sponge function on a whole lot of them. But Stream Cipher is better for small amounts of data because it has that one character and replace it for another. So it's slow when you're trying to do large amounts of data. Block Cipher can do large amounts of data, but it's not as secure as some of the Stream Cipher. So keep that in mind. 3 categories of cryptographic algorithms are hash algorithms, symmetric, and asymmetric. And like I said, they can get a little bit, your brain will hurt, I can guarantee. These are the reason I suggested you go look at those videos, because knowing the difference between these, you will have to quiz yourself over and over again. And I can guarantee, like I was asked in a job interview, the hash symmetric and asymmetric. So it is very, very important. So hash algorithm creates a unique digital fingerprint of a set of data and is commonly called hashing. This fingerprint, called a digest, sometimes it's called a message digest or hash, represents the contents and is primarily used for comparison purposes. Hashing is intended to be one way in that its digest cannot be reversed to reveal the original set of data. Now remember that, that's the big deal with hashing. You cannot reverse it. Secure hashing algorithms characteristics. There's a fixed size. Short and long data sets have the same hash. It's unique. 2 different data sets cannot produce the same hash. If they can, that means that the algorithm that created them is flawed. Original data set cannot be created to have a predefined hash. Secure resulting hash cannot be reversed to determine original plain text. That's why hashing is used. Okay, so this is showing what it looks like when you're verifying. This is why they use hashes to verify data. And a lot of times when you go on websites, you'll see that. And then when you download it, you'll see that SHA-256. SHA-256 is a type of algorithm. So you will go out and you will see that code. And if you download it, you should have the same code. And if you don't have the same code, you know something's wrong. Yeah. Does that make sense? So anytime you see where they're talking about match this, if you want to match this, you also see them do that SHA matching when it comes to software and things like that on like antivirus products and things like that. They have those as well. Message digest, MD, is one of the earliest family of hash algorithms. I really hope that you do not see this in the wild right now. It's the most well-known of the MD hash algorithms is MD5. Some security experts recommend using a more secure, you better not be using MD at all. You should be using SHA or AES is the one that is the most current. SHA-2 is considered a secure hash. SHA-3 was announced as a new standard in 2015 and it might be suitable for some low power devices. Race integrity. Okay, I'm not going to read all of that. So RIPE MD. This is primary design feature is two different and independent parallel chains of computation. Results are combined at the end of the process. Anytime you see those dash and a number, that means like it's 128-bit, it's 256-bit. So that's what they're talking about on that. Right now, AES 512 is considered yeah, that makes me sad. But I'm not surprised. Email is not considered most places don't consider email completely 100% secure, no matter who you are. And if you're going to be using MD, MD5 is the most secure of the MD. If you're going to be using the other ones, though, most security experts, when you're talking about like password managers, most of them use AES 256 or 512. And you'll see those like here's your AES Advanced Encryption Standard down here. Symmetric cryptography algorithms use the same single key to encrypt and decrypt a document. Original cryptographic algorithms were symmetric, also called private key cryptography. The key is kept private between the sender and receiver. Common algorithms include DES, 3DES, AES, RC, and Blowfish. And the reason they have all these names, sometimes you'll see that they're actually a combination of the mathematicians' names who made up the algorithm. And there are competitions where the mathematicians get together and they actually get a pretty decent amount of money if they can make one that's used for a security standard. So anytime they up the security standards like Blowfish and things like that, they usually are, through these competitions, they've been submitted that way. Okay, so here's what your plain text, you see there, plain text, ciphertext, and there's your identical key. And this is your private key cryptography example. And you'll see a difference here. The biggest one you really need to know the difference between is symmetric and asymmetric. The primary weakness of symmetric algorithms, distributing and maintaining a secure single key among multiple users distributed geographically, poses challenges. So asymmetric cryptography algorithms use two mathematically related keys. This is where you get public key cryptography. Public key is available to everyone and it's freely distributed. And the private key is known only to the individual to whom it belongs. There are key pairs, public keys, private keys, and then keys can work in both directions. Yeah, if you're good at math, there is a lack of people who actually understand cryptography. People learn enough to get by, but if you know enough to actually work in the cryptographic field, you can make bank. So yeah, if that's something that interests you, I would say go for it. Okay, so here's your public and private key example with asymmetric. And you see your plain text, there's your public key. Bob sends it because he knows the public key. And then Alice will take that and use the private key to get to it. Yeah, I hated math too until I saw, I'm okay with it as long as I can see how it's used with something, but math for the sake of math, like I'm never going to be someone that's going to be in one of those competitions, because when they start talking about the math, my brain just starts kind of hurting after a while. But that's why I suggest those videos, because you know, I wouldn't say watch them all at once. I'd say watch and then take a break and then watch, but they really do a good job on explaining them. Okay, RSA, these are asymmetric. This one was 1977. It multiplies two large prime numbers, and the basis of RSA encryption security is factoring. There's the elliptic curve cryptography, or ECC. Users share one elliptic curve and one point on the curve, use less computing power than prime number-based asymmetric cryptography. The key sizes are smaller, and it's considered as an alternative for prime number-based asymmetric cryptography for mobile and wireless devices. So basically, they were looking for something that wouldn't take as much computing power, but would still be secure. And this is an example, and don't feel bad if you don't understand this, but this is an example of what elliptic curve cryptography looks like. Digital signature algorithm, or DSA. This creates a digital signature and electronic verification of the sender. A digital signature can verify the sender, prevent sender from disowning the message, improve message integrity. So that prevents sender from disowning the message, that's your non-repudiation right there that they're talking about. Key exchange, there are different solutions for key exchange that occurs within normal communication channels. There's the Diffie-Hellman, and that's where I was talking about, you have the two people's names. Diffie-Hellman ephemeral, elliptical curve, Diffie-Hellman, and perfect forward secrecy. Of all those, Diffie-Hellman is the one that you'll need to remember. The other ones I haven't seen as often in yeah, it does sound like it's I think it's the name of the last names of the two mathematicians that came up with it, if I remember correctly. So this is what an asymmetric cryptographic algorithm looks like. And as you can see, it is significantly more convoluted than the other graphics that we've looked at. So you have your plain text, you have your hash algorithm, and then you have your asymmetric cryptographic, and then it goes down, and you can see that there are several different ways to get in. That you have to, I mean, several different steps, not ways, steps that you have to use to get into it. Okay, which of the following is a function of a digital signature? Provides authorization, encrypts transmitted data, decrypts transmitted data, proves message integrity. Just throw some answers in there. Don't feel bad if you get it wrong. I think encryption is probably one of the most commonly difficult areas. It's D, message integrity. Okay, cryptographic attacks and defenses. Cryptography remains under attack by threat actors for vulnerabilities. A new field of quantum cryptography defenses can aid in making cryptography more secure. Two of the most common cryptography attacks are algorithm attacks and collision attacks. So methods attackers can use to circumvent strong algorithms. There are ciphertext attacks. This is statistical tools that can be used to attempt to discover a pattern in the ciphertext, which can then be used to reveal the plain text or key. That's why they have to constantly look for new algorithms. There's a downgrade attack. A threat actor forces the system to abandon the current higher security mode of operation and instead fall back to implementing an older or less secure mode. Attacks based on misconfiguration. Selecting weak algorithms should be avoided since they're no longer secure. This is why I said you need to, one of the first things that I did when I took over one of my positions was go and check what they were using, and I was horrified to see that they were not, I'm not going to tell you which one they were using, but it was several generations behind what they should have been using. I'll just tell you that. Well, a lot of the times ransomware is encrypted using like the AES type stuff. So if you can actually get in there, yeah, it's not the nice MD5 type stuff. And in 255, I have some hashing programs and things like that that'll show you how you can attack them and how you can attack hashes and things like that. But a lot of the stuff for the ransomware, they go as high as possible. Their tools are pretty pretty bad. So collision attacks. Okay, so this one's pretty interesting. When two files have the same digest, it's known as a collision. A collision attack is an attempt to find two input strings of a hash function that produce the same hash results. So usually that will happen if it's an older, I've seen that happen like in the original MD, and that's why they don't use MD1, because you can get a collision attack and put two strings and get the same hash out, which is why they had to update the algorithm. Birthday attack based on birthday paradox, which says that for there to be 50% chance that someone in a given room shares your birthday, 23 people would need to be in the room. That one's one of those math ones that just makes my brain hurt. So yeah, it's kind of an odd one. That one, that's one that you'd have to go on and type in birthday attack example, and probably someone on YouTube has it. Most of the time they do. Quantum cryptographic defenses. Quantum cryptography takes advantage of quantum computing for increasing cybersecurity. One subcategory of quantum cryptography is quantum communication or secure telecommunications. Users in a quantum communication exchange can easily detect eavesdroppers. Quantum computing also has a drawback for cybersecurity. A single quantum computer could perform factoring by using hundreds of atoms in parallel to quickly factor huge numbers, rendering all current asymmetric cryptographic algorithms useless. However, quantum computers are not cheap. So getting access to them and getting access to time to using them is very difficult right now. So that's why a lot of that has, it's more of an academic thing, because usually you have to be, if you're in the active, it's kind of like going into using particle accelerators and things like that. You have to be on a list, you have to have a certain amount of time. There's such a huge amount of people for such small amount of them, and even the people that want to use them have to go through all sorts of loops to get near them. Yeah, especially after Edward Snowden. Okay, which type of cryptography attack attempts to find, okay, that's great. It's supposed to be two input strings of a hash function that produce same hash results. Downgrade birthday ciphertext algorithm. Any guesses? Okay, I think we're all tired. Okay. So I would not have gotten this one at first either, so you're fine. Cryptography can be applied through software and hardware, and a relatively new technology known as blockchain, which you guys should know about, uses cryptography as the basis. So encryption through software, there's file and file system cryptography. Encryption software can be used to encrypt or decrypt files one by one, which takes a long time. Protecting groups of files can take advantage of the operating system's file system. There's third-party software tools available for encryption, including GNU Privacy Guard. I've used AxeCrypt. It's actually pretty cool. Folder Locker and VeriCrypt. Operating system encryption. Microsoft Windows encrypting files, EFS, is a cryptography system for Windows. EFS uses NTFS file system. Tightly integrated with the file system, encryption and decryption are transparent to the user. So it really just depends on what you want to do. If you only have a few items that you want to do, use your third-party file by file. If you want to do your entire system, you can do the EFS file system encryption. There's also full disk encryption. FDE protects all the data on your hard drive, so something like BitLocker. And I will say that forensic people do not particularly enjoy having to take apart stuff that uses BitLocker, so it obviously works. I'm actually part of a group called HTCIA, which is for cybersecurity forensic professionals, and there have been several discussions about what a pain it is to get through these. So it obviously works. BitLocker drive encryption software is included with Microsoft Windows. It encrypts the entire system volume, including the Windows registry, and prevents attackers from accessing data by booting from another OS or placing the hard drive in another computer, which is usually what you do as a forensic expert. There's hardware encryption. Software encryption can be subject to attacks to exploit its vulnerabilities. Cryptography can be embedded in hardware, provides higher degree of security, can be applied to USB devices and standard hard drives. Hardware encryption options include trusted platform module and hardware security module. Yeah, and Linux does have a form of FDE. USB device encryption, encrypted hardware-based flash drives can be used. Will not connect to a computer until correct password's been provided. All data copied to the drive is automatically encrypted. Tamper-resistant external cases. Administrators can remotely control and track activity on the devices. Stolen drives can be remotely disabled. I've seen this use of this quite a bit, and there are quite a few different options available for the just like personal use market. Self-encrypting drives, self-encrypting hard drives protect all files stored on them. The drive and host device perform authentication process during initial power up. If authentication fails, the drive can be configured to deny access or even delete encryption keys, so all data is permanently unreadable. There's an HSM, hardware security module. This is a removable external cryptographic device. It includes an onboard key generator and key storage facility. Performs accelerated symmetric and asymmetric encryption. And because it's hardware-based, you can't get malware on it. There's also a trusted platform module. A TPM is a chip on a computer's motherboard that provides cryptographic services, includes a true random number generator. It's entirely done in hardware, so it cannot be subject to a software attack. Prevents computer from booting if files or data have been altered. Prompts for password if hard drive moved to a new computer. And eat it if someone comes. There you go. Make sure it's a micro SD card, though, because the full-size one would probably be very uncomfortable. Blockchain. So blockchain is shared immutable ledger that facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets in the business network. Blockchain technology allows a network of computers to agree at regular intervals on the true state of a distributed ledger. It's a system in which a record of transactions made is maintained across several computers that are linked in a peer-to-peer network. Blockchain relies on cryptographic hash algorithms to record its transactions. So this is an example of a multiple organization ledger. Cat, don't do anything stupid again. Okay, which of the following is an example of an FDE? BitLocker, EFS, GNUPG, or folder lock? Good job. Okay, so that is it for today. Usually I would stick around and be on this, but I am still getting the rainbow crystal effect, which means I'm going to get nailed pretty quickly with a migraine here. So